$13.99. So call us up, ask for the party pack, and take it home for just $13.99. It's perfect for a party of epic proportions.
This week on Midday.
A Des Moines man talks about his multicultural newspaper, The Communicator.
Some ISU students are acting up for the MTA. We'll learn more, and we'll find out how a mother and daughter were reunited through a runaway service.
The jet-powered monster truck, the Silver Bullet, highlights the auto show. We'll take you there, and to Drake University, where we'll join a celebration for Martin Luther King's birthday.
We'll take you to the Women's Club art exhibit, and a doctor talks about a medical problem most people won't discuss.
All of this and more on Midday.
You're on TV8, KCCI-TV, Des Moines.
To my informants, they were in a position to convince me that this man was innocent.
What in the world is going on here? You may not believe it, but this is a Japanese business school. If you wonder why Japan is giving the U.S. such a run for its money, just spend a week here, as we did.
Can I ask you a question? You seen this little girl? This number here is a 24-hour hotline. Okay. If you're ever in trouble and you need help. I know you. Well, of course I know you.
Who is this Lois Lee? A 35-year-old sociologist who founded and directs Children of the Night, an organization aimed at getting young runaways and prostitutes off the streets of Hollywood.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Harry Reasoner.
I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Diane Sawyer. Those stories and Andy Rooney, tonight on 60 Minutes.
Accord. With its unique double wishbone suspension, handles and rides like no other car. The Accord from the engineers at Honda.
When information is in the hands of just a few, you're at their mercy. You play by their rules. But we think people should be in control, not machines. So at AT&T, we're working to combine computers and communications so you can get the right information to the right people at the right time. As easy as using the telephone. AT&T, the right choice.
He's a good cop is probably the most satisfying accolade a police officer can earn. And a good cop is what this story is about.
His name is Frank Friel. Today, he is the detective captain in the Philadelphia police force. But for 3 years in the early 1980s, he put his career on the line to free a man from death row. The kind of man a cop doesn't usually go to bat for. But in this case, Frank Friel was convinced the man was innocent. The man, Neil Ferber, was known to the Philadelphia police as a petty thief, a forger, a public nuisance. But Friel says he was not a murderer and did not deserve to be on death row waiting to go to the electric chair.
I was there approximately 16 months. You're in a 6x8 cell, 22 hours a day. If you choose, you can go outside, and they put you in you might as well say it's a dog cage. The noise itself will run you right up a wall.
The murder Neil Ferber was arrested for took place in 1981. The police said he was one of 2 men in ski masks who walked into the Melita's restaurant and began shooting. Killed were mobster Steve Burris and a female companion. A gangland war had been going on, and bodies were said to be dropping all over South Philadelphia. Up to now, the police had solved none of the murders. Here was one they thought they had solved. They fixed on Neil Ferber because of his criminal record, because he was a friend of a suspect in one of the other gangland murders, and because he had been identified at the scene by an eyewitness. But Captain Frank Friel says Ferber hardly fit the profile of a mafia hitman.
Neil Ferber was kind of a timid guy. He was a small-time burglar in the northeast section of Philadelphia. Neil Ferber's profile is not consistent with a profile that one would ordinarily associate with an organized crime murder. Typically, a guy who's anticipating committing a contract murder does a lot of things. He may drink, he may take pills, he may beef himself up, he may do a lot of braggadocious talking, just to put himself in a frame of mind where he could walk into a group of diners and shoot them in the head. This was not consistent with the activities that I had established Ferber had completed prior to the murder. I had talked to my informants. They were in a position to convince me that this man was innocent.
And your informants were mob figures?
My informants predominantly were mob people in a position to know.
Why would these mob figures, your informants, care?
Mob people are traditionally family people that are interested, and they have a strong sense of justice. When something is so outrageous to appear to them that something should be done, it's not infrequent that they would come forward, especially under these circumstances.
Nobody has shown me anything that changes my opinion that Neil Ferber was involved in that murder.
Mike Chitwood was one of the officers who arrested Ferber.
The evidence that I had back when the time the investigation happened, I think most strongly dealt with the identification of originally both Egans.
Both Egans are John and Linda Egan. They were parking their car in front of the Melita's restaurant at about 9:30 p.m. at the very time that Boris and his companion were being shot to death inside.
We heard some pops coming out of the restaurant, and then two men ran out. One stopped in front of each headlight. They were wearing ski masks and they were carrying guns, and the one on the right pulled off his ski mask and looked back toward the restaurant. Then they both ran off down the street.
After the Egans acknowledged a 5-second glimpse of one of the killers in profile, they went to police headquarters and helped draw this full-face police composite. A composite that came out looking like a carbon copy of a police mugshot of Neil Ferber.
When the case went to trial, the district attorney made much of the importance of the sketch. He waved the sketch before the jury, as I understand it, I wasn't there, and said, "Look at this sketch. It's like a picture of Neil Ferber."
And that was just too good to be true, says Dennis Cogan, Ferber's new attorney.
In fact, it looked exactly like an earlier mugshot that had been taken of Neil Ferber long before this shooting occurred. That was awfully suspicious.
And because of that suspicion, Cogan consulted a veteran police sketch expert.
And when he saw it, he said, "It's unbelievable. Look what they did to this guy." There isn't any doubt the sketch was drawn from the mugshot.
How in the world could the Egans help to construct this kind of a composite if they saw him for a matter of seconds in the dark and in profile, and Ferber, if it was he, pulling off his ski mask along the way?
Again, you're using the word profile. I'm saying to you that to draw this type of picture, they had to see more than profile.
My best memory of his face, however, is in profile. The one that I remember the best.
Is the profile?
Yes.
And you too?
I saw his left profile and then his right profile. I never saw him full face.
You did not identify Neil Ferber at the lineup.
That's right.
How come?
I don't think he's a man who I saw.
But Mrs. Egan was never called to testify about that at the trial.
Neil Ferber is the man I saw, and I identified him in the lineup for that reason.
Mr. Egan was.
Question, are you satisfied that on the basis of your ID, a man should have gone to the electric chair?
Well, I have no doubt in my mind, based on the amount of time that I saw Neil Ferber.
3 to 5 seconds.
The person that I saw was 3 to 5 seconds, that it was the same man. But I really believe that the decision to send him to the electric chair was one that the jury made and not one that I made.
It's fascinating that you two, same car, same time, right by the restaurant, same fellow who pulled off the ski mask, could come up with two diametrically different answers. You were never called, were you, Mrs. Egan?
No.
Why not, to testify?
I don't know. They never said why.
Shouldn't they have?
Shouldn't they have called me?
Yes.
I thought that they would, yeah.
That wasn't the only thing that didn't add up. Captain Frank Friel was skeptical about the trial testimony of a cellmate of Ferber, who told the court that Ferber had confessed to him that he had committed the murders for $20,000. In exchange for his testimony, the witness, Jerry Jordan, was said to have gotten a deal to lighten his own prison sentence.
Did the police give Jordan a deal in order to testify in return for his testimony?
To my knowledge, no.
But Jerry Jordan himself admitted later in a Philadelphia television interview that in fact a deal had been made.
I testified in a court of law that there was no deals made, but actually there was.
And the deal was that in return for his testimony, assault and robbery charges against Jordan that carried up to 35 years in prison were dismissed. Those charges were dismissed the day after Neil Ferber was convicted. It was after Ferber had been convicted that Frank Friel began to have doubts about that conviction, and he went looking for evidence to shore up his hunch. It was then that he first met with serious resistance from his fellow cops, who were satisfied they had nailed the right man.
The story here in Philadelphia is that you were under tremendous pressure from the police department during your own investigation, in effect, to go easy. Don't go after it so hard, Frank Friel.
There was a lot of pressure in the police department. There was people that came up to me and told me to be careful where I'm stepping.
And you were doing it mainly by yourself?
I was doing it by myself because I was the only person that could do it. I was the only person that had all this information.
And for his trouble, Friel was nearly fired.
It was told to me unequivocally that your job is to arrest murderers, not unarrest murderers.
Did you receive threats?
I received numerous threats, of course.
Saying?
Saying, get out of the case, get off the case.
Or?
Well, something will happen to you. Something will happen to your family.
It took a tremendous amount of courage for Frank Friel to come forward and say this is wrong.
Arthur Schumann was deputy DA at the time of Ferber's conviction.
You got to remember, he comes forward, he says this is wrong. What is he saying? He's saying this guy was wrongly prosecuted and wrongly convicted. Whether directly or indirectly, that lays some of the blame, at least at the feet of the police department.
He's saying that fellow police officers messed this up, at least, if not more. And for anybody, any police officer to say that is a tremendously courageous thing. He was laying his whole career on the line.
If the Ferber case was ever to be reopened, Frank Friel had to convince this man, Ed Rendell, at the time the district attorney of Philadelphia. Up to the Ferber case, Rendell's office had a poor record in convicting gangland killers, and the police had an equally poor record in finding gangland killers. This was one case in which Rendell had gotten a conviction, and he didn't want to give it up.
Each time Frank expressed a doubt, our prosecutors had an explanation that was every bit as tenable as Frank's doubt was. And at the end of that meeting, Frank said, look, Ed, he said, I always told you that I wasn't sure. It's just my gut, that there's no direct evidence that proves he's innocent.
For there's no question that as of late 1982, the district attorney of Philadelphia had sufficient information which not just justified, but absolutely demanded that some further investigation go on in this case.
Let me understand. You're saying that right after he was convicted, and 3 years at least, before he finally was set free, the district attorney's office was getting information that he was not the man?
That's absolutely correct.
And Ed Rendell knew that?
Within a matter of weeks, that information was passed on by me personally to the district attorney.
The reason that nothing was done on the Ferber case was all we were given by Kogan, by Schumann, and even by Frank. All we were given was interesting speculation. It doesn't fit. He wouldn't have done this. It doesn't make any sense. I've got informants who say that he didn't do it. Not one piece of evidence that I could use in a court of law.
There was many a night that I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, doubting my own ability to be as persuasive as I thought that I should be, and convincing these people what I believe to be true, and the fact that we now have an innocent man who's going to suffer the death penalty.
Friel kept looking for evidence, and he discovered that back in 1981, even before the police informant Jerry Jordan had testified against Ferber at the trial, the police had given him a lie detector test, which they listed officially as inconclusive, but which clearly showed, according to Friel, that Jordan was lying about Neil Ferber.
He was a liar.
He was a liar. He was a liar, that's correct.
And he was known to be a liar before he testified in court, and yet the state depended upon him.
His background would indicate that his testimony should be viewed very closely.
For the district attorney to stand up and say, whoops, we made a mistake.
Big deal.
Is like an umpire changing the call at first base that decides the World Series, you see. It's going to throw every first-degree murder conviction, every death penalty case for a long time into the future in question.
Because it's conceivable that some people were put to death.
Defense attorneys are always going to be saying, what about the Ferber case? You know, they're going to say to juries, there's a man who was sentenced to death, he could have died and he didn't do it.
Were there other political implications in this whole business?
Well, there's a significant implication, and that bears on the death penalty. Whether you consider that political or not, death penalty is something that does exist in Pennsylvania. The quickest way to eliminate that is to electrocute the wrong man, somebody who may be shown to be innocent down the line.
Frank Friel, Arthur Schumann, and Ferber's attorney Dennis Cogan kept after D.A. Ed Rendell to reopen the case, to grant Ferber a new trial.
3 years. 3 years before you finally made up your mind. These people were saying to you, look, pay attention.
But I did pay attention. We never had sufficient hard evidence to upset that conviction until Jerry Jordan, according to the two polygraphers, flunked the polygraph.
That polygraph exam was a new one, a second one, given to Jerry Jordan at Frank Friel's urging 3 long years after Ferber's conviction. These polygraph examiners determined that Jerry Jordan had lied about Ferber's confession to him. But still, the district attorney's office was unconvinced of Ferber's innocence. So they proposed a compromise to Friel, a life term instead of electrocution.
What was your reaction to that offer of life instead of death?
I told them they were missing the point. The point here is not a concession. The point is that this man is innocent. I believe this man to be innocent. I brought forward what I thought was compelling information so that the district attorney of the city of Philadelphia could conclude at this point that he was innocent. It was no longer an issue of making a decision to reduce his sentence. The fact of the matter was this man should be released. This man was innocent.
And that, of course, is what happened. After 4 years in prison, 16 months of it on death row, Neil Ferber was granted a new trial and released from prison. Then several weeks later, the DA's office decided not to have a new trial. So Neil Ferber was a free man.
But eventually, the system did work.
If there's people like Friel on the system.
The system worked in the case of Neil Ferber.
The system was responsible for his arrest, trial, and conviction, and the system was responsible for his ultimate exoneration.
And you take great pride in the fact that Neil Ferber is free.
I said to my best friend in this life, after Ferber was released, that of all the accomplishments that we've been responsible for, as far as arresting organized crime figures, very bad people, that this will be our most significant accomplishment, that we've released an innocent man. We prevented an innocent man from going to the chair.
A footnote. Police officials in Pennsylvania, including FBI personnel, are now satisfied that Neil Ferber had nothing to do with the murder of Steve Boris. They believe it was a gangland killing, and they think they know who the shooters were. Indictments are expected shortly.
The guys at Car and Drive are pretty impressed with the Mazda 323. They know what they're talking about. They say, and I quote, "It conveys a feeling of structural integrity and heft that belies its small size," unquote. What they're saying is, it's a small road car. They also say, quote, "It's one impressive machine, not only a solid driving package, but a solid value as well," unquote. I tell everybody it's the best small car I've ever driven. Of course, nobody ever quotes me.
This man is missing nearly 1/2 of the fiber he should have every day. He's not the only one. The National Cancer Institute states that most Americans have diets lacking adequate fiber. Fortunately, just one serving of Kellogg's All-Bran has the amount of fiber needed to make up what the average person is missing each day. Kellogg's All-Bran. It can make all the difference.
A rock and a hard place. Many who find themselves there resign themselves to a no-win situation. Others are paralyzed into making no decision at all. We, however, believe that between a rock and a hard place is a solution, searching to be found. Seeking what others don't see is capitalism at its best, and why you'll never look at a hard decision quite the same again. Shearson Lehman Brothers. Minds over money.
Tonight, Jessica involved in espionage? Guns? Spies?
What is going on?
You are a suspect in a murder investigation. Murder, she wrote. Then, the greatest American saga ever told. Their past was passionate. Their destiny was war. Their story was love. Their future gone with the wind.
Where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Clark Gable and Vivian Leigh in the sweeping classic of the Civil War, Gone with the Wind, tonight.
It hardly seems like a place to learn how to succeed in business, but that's what it is. Kanrisha Yosei Gakko, the most famous business management school in all of Japan. It's where mid-level executives of Japanese companies, small ones and large ones like Nissan and Honda, are sent to be samurai of salesmanship. After all, as the saying goes in Japan, business is a martial art. The companies pay the $2,000 tuition fee, and they take the report card very seriously. Pass the course and you've got a future. Fail, and you've probably seen your last promotion. Got it? Okay, let's go to school. These are corporate commandos, mid-level managers in their 30s and 40s and even 50s. They come to the foot of Mount Fuji to rededicate themselves to their companies and through their companies' profits to Japan. They don't come here voluntarily. They've been ordered here by their bosses for 13 days of self-improvement. Instructor Fujimori.
Physically, but it's very tough to break his own conception out.
To break his conception of himself. Do you know they call this hell camp?
Oh, that's only a name. Actually, this is paradise.
If this is paradise, the angels better bring some earplugs. The first thing you notice at hell camp is that everybody shouts. From the diaphragm, the instructors say, like admirals. Only these admirals are about to set sail against U.S. companies like GE and IBM. Englishman Anthony Willoughby runs a leather goods business in Tokyo and is the only Westerner ever to sign up for the course.
This school is actually designed on exactly the same plan as the kamikaze schools before the war, or during the war. I promise you, it is the Naval Academy is what this is. These are the lines that it is run on.
You mean these are soldiers training for combat?
Absolutely.
Day one, all 250 members of the class are called to muster. There are basically two kinds of recruits. People who are due for promotion to be senior executives but aren't quite ready. And weak executives who've been warned to shape up if they expect to advance in their careers. But before you can shape up, the instructors say, you must sit up. A long stick used in Zen Buddhist rituals prepares the sloppy plebes to learn self-discipline.
Once you've got in there and you've been through the initiation ceremony and they've played the music and you're feeling a part of it, you then are told that which group you're in, about 8 or 15 people, depending on the time. You're then marched outside and you're put up in line like that. And then you have to look at the person in front of you and scream, "Hey there! Hey there! Hey there!" And that means good morning.
After a few ear-splitting good mornings, each recruit is ready to pick up his 14 badges of shame. The ribbons force each trainee to wear his inadequacies on his chest. When he conquers a weakness and passes a test, the instructors allow him to take off a ribbon. All ribbons must be gone to graduate. What kind of tests? Memorizing the 10 commandments of aggressive salesmanship. Clear pronunciation. There are telephone tests designed to make you commanding and quick when you sell by phone. And there are debates, sort of. It's okay if your answer is wrong, as long as it's loud and fast. And there are letters to write to your boss, promising to improve your work and show loyalty to the company. Above all, you must be assertive, especially when proclaiming your limitations. Did you like it?
No, I hated it. I have never in my life felt more homesick or wanted to get out of anywhere. I've never wanted to escape more.
Why? It's not physically so tough.
An excruciating boredom that, and also just the whole atmosphere. I really didn't like it. It's a powerful place.
So powerful that few trainees will ever forget the school song.
And I promise you, it's 3 years since I did this course, but that is still absolutely in my brain.
It's called the Sales Crow song for loyal birds of business. Everybody has to learn to sing it from the heart. What you make with the sweat of your brow, they sing, you must sell with the sweat of your brow. What you make with tears, you must sell with tears. Don't be discouraged, Sales Crow. Look bravely down the street. Encourage yourself, Sales Crow, and fight like a warrior. But what's the point of it psychologically?
I think Japanese people, again, have seldom got out themselves and shouted, because you never shout. And let's say there's one saying in Japanese, the first man to raise his voice has lost the argument. And all this is again, keeping people quiet, keeping them down, so that this is the first time they've been told to get out to shout.
And it's not enough just to shout on the campus. Each day, some of the students put on their business uniforms and are bussed into town to sing the Sales Crow song near the entrance to the railroad station. As always, they're graded. This is pass, this is fail. The instructors say this is all designed to give the students confidence in public speaking. It's less clear what it gives the people passing by. Back on campus, the competition to get rid of the badges keeps the pressure mounting. And already, by today, day 5, with the toughest 8 days still ahead, one person has run away in the middle of the night without a trace, 2 people have been treated for injuries, and only 91 ribbons of shame have been removed, which leaves 3,143 ribbons of shame to go. No wonder at Hell Camp, you even have to learn how to laugh. Morning wake-up call is 4:15. There are sunrise calisthenics with a towel. It's an old samurai ritual designed to toughen the skin. On this day, the recruits will need tougher skin, literally and figuratively. This is the day of the 25-mile endurance hike. They are sent out in squads. They have maps, though the maps are deliberately misleading, and knapsacks with some rice, fish, and water. The squads compete to see who can get back first. On the average, it takes about 7 or 8 hours to complete the course. And it's not unusual to see some recruits returning by stretcher. It's the day before graduation. An instructor coaches a weak student who is about to get his last chance to pass the test on the Sales Crow song. One more time, he faces the judge. And a grateful embrace for the instructor who coached him through.
Graduation is very, I must say, very moving. I find it moving. I felt a fraud there because I hadn't actually passed all the tests, of course. But to actually see the people coming together, those who've passed and those who have still failed, and half of the people had failed, and those who actually did pass certainly had an immense sense of satisfaction, pride in what they'd done, and were ready to snap back into the system which has built this country.
In this class, only 12 out of 250 graduated on the 13th day. Those who failed got 3 more days to keep trying. If you wonder how important it really is to succeed at Hell Camp, this is a man who, at the end of those 3 days, had failed the course completely. His future as a manager is probably finished. While the other graduates head home, he is humiliated. When he returns, he will face his boss and his family in shame.
I think you can see the single-mindedness and strength of this country that I think is inspiring to anybody else in the world who wants to call themselves a capitalist or who wants to call themselves a businessman. Japan leads the world at the moment, and people have got to come and look and see why. And though we in the West might consider this sinister, it's not really sinister. It's getting people excited. It's getting them within the company area that's good for the group, good for Japan.
And good for the people who can say they have been to Hell Camp and survive.
You Americans have all the luck. When I want the great chicken dishes of the world, I have to use my British passport. Your passport, however, is Tyson chicken entrees. Delicious international meals like Tyson chicken français. Incredibly sumptuous. And fortunately, Tyson prepares chicken in so many delicious ways. Tyson is the only passport you need for a world of great tastes. Waiter! No hurry.
In Deutschland haben wir ein Wort für das Gefühl, einen Volkswagen Golf GT zu fahren. Yahoo!
Hey, chicken, how you feeling? Look, I brought you something to make you feel better. It's a great get-well gift from FTD. Comes in this reusable chicken soup bowl. Oops. Send the FTD chicken soup bowl bouquet.
60 Minutes, a CBS News weekly magazine, will continue.
I'm Mariette Hartley.
I'm Roland Smith.
Please be with us for the morning program. The very first one, Monday, you'll meet Sophia Loren, Sharon Glass, and Tyne Daly. That's television's Cagney and Lacey.
Plus freshman Congressman Joseph Kennedy II and Pat Summerall and John Madden with a Monday morning look at Sunday's big games.
All of that and you, we hope.
On the morning program.
This is CBS.
For Post Natural Bran Flakes, Rue McClanahan on getting the best out of life.
Because last night I was so bad. I'm making sure I have a good morning.
Reach for the best tasting, highest fiber Bran Flake. Post Bran Flakes at their best. For Post Natural Bran Flakes, Steve Allen on getting the best out of life.
My best always comes out with a little humor, and sometimes with a sliced banana.
Reach for the best tasting, highest fiber Bran Flake. Post Bran Flakes at their best.
You're on TV8, KCCI TV, Des Moines.
Lois Lee works the streets of Hollywood, long a lure for those seeking fame, glamour, a chance to be in the movies, but now also a mecca for the underside of all that, high crime, drug use, and prostitution. No, that's not what Lois Lee does. This is what Lois Lee does.
Can I ask you a question? You seen this little girl? These are missing children. Seen this little girl?
This number here is a 24-hour hotline. If you're ever in trouble and you need help.
I know you. Well, of course I know you.
This number here is 24 hours if you need help.
The street is a war zone. When I'm out on the streets, I have to watch my back. I have to keep my eyes open. I have to keep my ears open. And I'm constantly aware of who's standing behind me.
Who is this Lois Lee? A 35-year-old sociologist who founded and directs Children of the Night, an organization aimed at getting young runaways and prostitutes off the streets of Hollywood. Lee grew up far from this life in a middle-class suburb of Los Angeles. Today, she lives with her husband, Michael, a real estate developer, in the valley, miles away from the streets she roams at night looking for these kids. While Michael and Lois are expecting their first child, Lois Lee has been taking kids into her home for 7 years. How did she come to this line of work? By accident.
When I was 19, I wanted to be an FBI agent, and they wouldn't let women in the FBI.
She ended up pursuing a doctorate on the most common first-time felony among women, prostitution. How did she find the kids?
I was working with adult prostitutes first. They said, you know, it's too late for you to help us, Lois. You've got to do something about these kids. We made a choice to be out here. It was a conscious decision. But these kids don't stand a chance. The kids have no alternative except for the pimps and Children of the Night.
How many of these kids have you taken into your home?
Over 250 kids in a 3-year period, and I still occasionally bring kids home.
Why did you do it?
Because the kids were so compelling. The kids could read, they could write, they were articulate. It wasn't as if there was a limited amount of hope. There was a lot of hope. These kids were able to, with a little bit of support, were able to get back into school, to assume jobs, and make it on their own.
For those she doesn't reach, the alternatives can be bleak.
Hands up! Get your hands up!
The police often raid abandoned houses in Hollywood looking for runaways or criminal activity. In this condemned building, they found 7 people sleeping here, among them a pregnant 17-year-old girl who said she'd left home in Florida 5 years ago to come to Hollywood. She was taken in as a runaway and sent to juvenile hall. In cooperation with the police, Lee had one of her volunteers there to tell the girl about Children of the Night. Later, Lee was tracking her down.
This is Dr. Lois Lee from Children of the Night. I'm calling you about Angela. who was picked up in that condemned building the other day. And I wanted to do a follow-up on this. Has she been to court yet?
Children of the Night looks for 12 to 17-year-olds who are on the streets and brings them in before they are picked up by the police to help them find a home, counseling, a job, school, or simply a way out. With a small staff and a score of volunteers, Lee claims to have helped almost 5,000 kids get off the streets since 1979. Lee says many of these kids have been abused, tossed out of their homes, or are runaways who arrive in Hollywood with virtually nothing. How can they survive?
Through prostitution, petty theft, or dope peddling. And prostitution is the easiest, and it's the most common.
I didn't really get into prostitution then until I came to Hollywood. And then I was really on my own. I didn't have any friends, and I didn't have anything to do. I'd have to go pull a trick for something to eat or a place to stay.
Michelle Martin says she ran away from home at 15 because her father had abused and molested her since she was 6. Lois Lee found her in Hollywood as a prostitute with a serious drug habit. Today, at 19, she attends college and works part-time with Children of the Night.
It's pretty easy. You walk down the street and I could walk 3 blocks and at least 5 cars would stop. And I didn't have to dress like a hooker. I didn't have to go to Sunset Boulevard and have that so-called hooker name. It's just like if I were to go to school, I'd wear my regular school clothes, walk down the street, and that's what they were looking for, a little schoolgirl type.
One day a car stopped and someone asked,
and I got in. That's where it started.
Were you afraid when you got into cars?
When I got in the car, I was scared every time.
How did you live with that kind of fear every day?
I had no choice. Fear or starve.
It's a sexual supermarket, and kids are the market.
What made you trust Lois Lee?
Her taking me in her custody, clearing up my warrant, and taking me to her house in Beverly Hills. Well, she didn't know if I was the next day going to leave with all her stuff. I mean, I'd never had anybody trust me that much to say, yes, I'll take this child in my custody. If I were to mess up, it's her on the line.
You deal with pimps and drug dealers and
yes.
Teenage prostitutes?
Yes.
You go into these places where the pimps hang out?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
If a parent contacts me and is looking for the 13-year-old daughter, I need to know where to go.
You ever afraid?
Yeah, from time to time I'm afraid, but I know what the street rules are. I know what the pimp game is. I know what the con games are, and it's up to me to play that game correctly. If something happens to me on the street, I screwed up.
Has anyone ever accused you of having led this life?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, I still, from time to time, get calls from people that I dealt with years ago when I had kids living with me in my house, and they called to apologize because when they were coming to interview me, they'd make a joke to their friend that they were interviewing the biggest madam in Beverly Hills. And there's no question that I over-identified with the kids, and I've taken this issue to heart.
You're pregnant now with your own child. How do you give time to your own life, to your husband?
Because the kids that I work with are also part of my personal life. I was real surprised how receptive the kids were to the fact that I'm pregnant. And then I also had to kind of suffer the consequences because a couple of kids came up to me and they were pregnant too. My husband is tremendously supportive of what I do, but I picked him that way. I mean, I looked for someone that could be a good father to my street kids.
She says she picked you out.
She probably did. That's the way she runs her life.
How do you mean?
Well, when she wants something, she normally gets it.
The kids came with the package?
That was part of the deal.
Does it ever bother you what she does?
Definitely. Hopefully one of these days she'll get out of it.
But Lois Lee says she won't get out of it until she completes her mission, building a shelter for these kids. In Los Angeles, there are only a handful of programs for homeless teenagers. The city has just 58 beds for such kids, so many of them end up in detention. Lois Lee's shelter would be a place for these kids who can't or won't go home. She has to spend a lot of time trying to sell Children of the Night to civic groups in Beverly Hills, Hollywood, and the LA area. Government money, according to Lois Lee, has too many conditions attached. She calls them ropes rather than strings. So she runs Children of the Night with private funds. It's an expensive proposition that she says keeps her with one foot in the gutter and the other in Beverly Hills.
It's a long way from the streets, the pimp bars that you know, to the ladies' tea room in Pasadena.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
But you make that transition.
I have to make that transition because if I want people to support this issue and do something for these kids, I have to give them something they can relate to. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's me. I am so committed to this. Even my PhD in my own mind is only a union card to get me in the door so that I can raise the funds and put together the program that these kids so desperately need.
You sell yourself instead of the program?
Yes, because people want to touch me, they want me at their events, they want me to dress a certain way. It's very difficult for me to be here with you today and to say the Pledge of Allegiance and to sing America the Beautiful when I know that every minute that there's children who are on the streets who are forced to prostitute for food to eat and a place to sleep, and they are without resources. I often wake up in the middle of the night with nightmares. And I have terrible nightmares. I have nightmares about people chasing me, people being able to corner me. And if this is what I go through, I don't have to live out there. Can you imagine what a 12-year-old girl must go through?
According to some of its fundraisers, Children of the Night is one of the most difficult groups to raise money for, not only because of the stigma attached to prostitution, but because of the stigma attached to Lois Lee's principal supporter. From the beginning, Hugh Hefner of Playboy has been a major backer. He donated the startup money to found Children of the Night in 1979. And since then, Playboy has been one of Lois Lee's biggest supporters. Here at the Playboy Mansion in Beverly Hills, they sponsor an annual benefit. The celebrities come out, they say, because of Lois Lee.
Thank you so much for helping us out.
Are you kidding? On a dime I would do this. Anyway, it's wonderful.
Oh, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This is my favorite fundraising event. And it's because I know most of you and because most of you already support Children of the Night. Hugh Hefner, a main source of support for me. We use their attorneys, their personnel department, you name it, they got it, we use it.
Jenny Jones, an insurance executive in Beverly Hills, volunteers her time to raise money for Children of the Night. She says some people have a problem about the Playboy connection.
People's reaction is almost always the same. Why is Playboy supporting Children of the Night? When they turn around and publish a magazine that exploits exactly what they're supposedly trying to help. I mean, that it doesn't go together.
Well, if people equate the notion of sexual freedom and a positive communication through both pictures and text, if they equate that with prostitution, I think that is society's problem. And that's part of what we're fighting.
I mean, if someone's from part of the moral majority or very involved in Catholicism or right to life, and they won't give me money because of Playboy, I understand that, and I have to really take that to heart. However, those are not the people that say that to me. The people that say that to me are people that aren't going to give me money anyway. And there's something that I will never, ever forget. I remember the days when there was no money and I had kids in my house and we didn't know where we were going to eat, and there was no one except for me, the kids, and Playboy. And when people say that to me, that because of Playboy they can't give us money, that's only a stone's throw away from saying you can't save those kids and they aren't worth saving anyway. If it's not Playboy, it's something else.
But the Playboy connection didn't stop President Reagan from naming Lois Lee one of the 1984 Volunteers of the Year.
To me, those are chips. Those are chips that I'm trying to cash in order to raise the money to set up this shelter. If a picture of me with the president is what it takes in order to get $100,000 out of a foundation, I'll go to Washington and have my picture taken. I will say something about that award. For the first time in my career, I could see that someone of significance, the President of the United States, could put prostitutes in the category of people who needed help. And that had never been done before.
There are no official figures on how many of these kids stay off the streets or how many return to that life. But according to Lois Lee's follow-up, 80% of the first-time runaways reached by children of the night do not return to the street. Many find legitimate work, return to school, or manage to get back into mainstream society.
Do you think you'll go back?
No.
Well, you see other kids out on the street. Well, what would you say to those kids?
You got to look for another way.
Children of the night?
It's a way out if you're really willing to try.
But it's no guarantee.
Well, you can't guarantee anything. You can't guarantee anything. Can't guarantee I'll be alive tomorrow.
You can't guarantee that you won't go back on the streets either, can you?
No. Can't guarantee it. Been there once. Could happen again.
The front-wheel drive Dodge Lancer is the performance sedan that will thrill you all the way to the red line, hold you to the dotted line, cover you down the line, and impress you with its bottom line. Dodge Lancer, with prices starting at $98.52. Dodge, setting new standards of performance.
If you're interested in earning more than a paycheck, the Century 21 system announces a week of opportunity. Mark your calendar now for career sessions. Find out why we're #1, the best-known professionals in the business. Find out about our career track training, one of the most comprehensive programs in real estate. Call the Century 21 office nearest you and make a date with your future.
Put #1 to work for you, Century 21.
Don't miss the Century 21 Career Opportunity Week, January 12th through the 18th.
Hello, Dallas.
Well, hi, Chicago.
Sounds a little crazy, but we wanted to see if the new fiber optic phone line in the system being built by U.S. Sprint really was so incredibly quiet that you could actually hear a pin drop.
Got it? Loud and clear. That was a pin?
So call now. Find out more and save with U.S. Sprint, where every fiber optic call sounds like you're right next door.
Monday, Emma's chased by a lovesick you.
I'd be flattered. I'd be furious. I'd be making out in the gym.
Then, will Sam survive her flashback to the 60s?
Well, these are actually my clothes.
And on Newhart, double dating has poor Dick in a dither.
I just hope I'm the one you end up with tonight.
We'll see how you do.
Then on the Kavanaughs.
This is medium starch.
I quit!
Family Life gives Kit the blues.
It's not easy being a Kavanaugh.
Monday.
The White House may call it a photo opportunity, but let's face it, what it really is having your picture taken. Andy Rooney has noticed that lately, President Reagan might just as well have skipped some of his photo opportunities.
First, I'd like to say, just in case he's watching 60 Minutes, or even if he isn't for that matter, that we're all happy the president has come through his surgery in such good shape. We see pictures of Mr. Reagan waving out the hospital window, yelling at reporters, and whether we like him or not as president, we have to admit he's a special person. He's 75 and he's not an old man. We've probably seen more pictures of this one man doing more things than any other person in all history. First, we saw him as a movie actor. He was always handsome. His hair was carefully combed and set in place. His clothes looked just right on him. Whether he wore blue jeans or a tuxedo or a bathing suit, everything fit him the way we'd all like to have clothes fit us. We've seen thousands of pictures of Ronald Reagan now as president. He still looks great. Even vetoing the clean water bill, he looks good. By now we know what Ronald Reagan looks like inside and out, and recently the pictures of him have been mostly inside.
The operation, known as a transurethral resection.
A small probe was sent through Mr. Reagan's urinary tract and into his prostate.
Doctors from the Mayo Clinic, hired by Mrs. Reagan, had conducted a transurethral resection.
President Reagan is undergoing surgery on his enlarged prostate gland this morning.
They should have had John Madden describing the president's operation. They went in here, right up here, and this guy cut over the middle, and they blocked this out, and the guy's got blood all over him, and he's my kind of guy. I want him on my team. President Lyndon Johnson may have started all this when he showed reporters his scar after his gallbladder was removed. Can you imagine what President Reagan thinks when he and Mrs. Reagan are watching television in the living room in the White House and see these pictures of him? Gosh, that doesn't look like me, does it, Nancy? You didn't have any makeup on, dear. Or Mrs. Reagan might say, oh, Ron, you should have turned over. You know that isn't your good side. It may seem like an invasion of privacy for us to be looking at our president's private parts, but it's always good when the public has all the information about everything. Putting President Reagan's medical problems out in the open where we can all see them has been a medical education for all of us. I just wish we knew a little less about his urethra and a little more about the arms sale to Iran.
I'm Harry Reasoner. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes.
There came a moment when all the elements came together, unleashing a superbly equipped new breed of compact car, the Dodge Shadow, with 2 or 4-door availability, affordable price, a $550 protection plan. The new Dodge Shadow is going to cast a giant shadow across America. Dodge setting new standards of performance.
Billy's in real good shape, but what's good on his plate?
Chef Boyardee, beef ravioli.
Sure, they love it, and it's good for them, too, because we use the good ingredients you would, with no preservatives.
Thank goodness for Chef Boyardee.
Thank goodness for Chef Boyardee.
We know you're concerned about the sweeping tax changes for 1987.
This year, put H&R Block on your side. Get back the biggest refund you've got coming.
I could not have done it without H&R Block.
What can we find for you?
Through the years, the mothers of America have had a kind of medical training.
Next.
They've learned from countless doctors and pharmacists that the way to take care of a cough is with Robitussin. And now at home, the mothers of America are putting this advice to work.
Next.
Robitussin, recommended by Dr. Mom. Which Robitussin is right for you? Ask your doctor or pharmacist.
Later tonight, Clark Gable and Vivien Leigh star in the greatest American epic ever produced, Gone with the Wind. But first, political intrigue and murder mar Jessica's Washington visit on Murder, She Wrote, next.
Americans, we like straight talk. We want hard facts. We demand the truth. We know who we are. And when it comes to news, we know who we trust. Dan Rather, weeknights on the CBS Evening News. We keep America on top of the world.
Thursday, Margot Kidder and James Reed are pros at con games, playing the shell game your mother warned you about. Then, can Simon & Simon stop a gang's last job?
No. Yeah. No. Yeah.
And
You're not looking forward to my mother coming here.
This is quite an adventure, Matt.
Karen comes face-to-face with Max Past. Knots Landing, Thursday.
4 generations have hung on here through locusts, drought, Comanches. I bet they thought about leaving, but they didn't.
To save his land, a farmer is forced to battle the man who betrayed him.
And just stay away from the rest of my customers. You got it?
Don't get in my way.
Earl Holliman and Wayne Rogers fight for control of an American harvest. Friday.
This is CBS.
I love this country. It's so fun
Yeah, like this chicken thing. See, this is chicken cube, this is chicken strip, and this is chicken, all white meat. Best tasting part of chicken. Tenderloin, most juiciest part. Comes with fries and coleslaw. And where's only place you get chicken this good? At a fish place. I love this country.
Long John Silver sounds good to me.
Is winter going to stop you cold? No way. Fight back with Ford's Traction Action. Do it now and save during your Ford dealer's Traction Action Day. Front-wheel drive Taurus. Go in the snow in style. Save $700. Escort, world's best sellers. Save over $900. Tempo, plenty in stock and save over $900. Front-wheel drive Traction Action.